Hello and welcome. This is Khurram Habib from the Hindustan Times. I'm here at the Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain in Trinidad, and I have with me one of the legends of the game, West Indian cricket, Mr. Gus Logie. Welcome, Mr. Logie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and your viewers as well.
Mr. Logie, West Indies cricket in your days was really, I mean, it was full of superstars. You had played with great people like Sir William, as you yourself played. Gordon Bennett, Desmond Hayes, Malcolm Marshall. Does it hurt you when you see this West Indian team losing to Afghanistan?
It is disappointing. As you said before, I mean, I played in a great team. I wouldn't really consider myself great, but certainly I had the privilege to play with and against some of the best players in the world at that time. Not only from the West Indies, but certainly from other parts of the world. And you talk about even India, the Kapil Devs, the Gavaskars, the Ben Sackers. These are some of the guys who will always be remembered and loved by us here in the West Indies as well. And then you go to the Pakistan team, the Imran, the Javed Miandar, and so every team had quality players, had great players, which you learn from, you try to emulate, and at the end of the day, you try to be the best that you can be. For the West Indies team, we had a group of individuals. We believe that every individual was in itself a match winner, and that in itself was very comforting for a young player coming into a setup like that. We really wanted to do the best we could, not only for ourselves as players, but also for, believe it or not, our captain, Clive Lloyd, who was well respected. I think he was a father figure to all of us as young players coming into the setup, and also for the Caribbean people, because we knew how important cricket was to all of us, the unifying force that it brought. And we lived with that. We grew up believing that as much as possible. There was a lot of interest in our cricket in those early days. And up to now, I mean, even though we're not doing as well, and we seem to be, I wouldn't say vulnerable to many defeats, we still believe in our hearts that one day we will turn things around. We still trust the young players we have. It's about the players now trusting in themselves and their own ability, believing in themselves, and getting a bit of the respect back in West Indies cricket, which we have lost both on and off the field, and I think that's going to be important going forward.
What do you think? What do you lay the blame on? Why do you think West Indies cricket has suddenly gone down?
Well, it's a combination of things. Many people will allude to the fact that when we were the top teams in the world, we had opportunities to play in England. Many of our players were considered to be the consummate professionals. They were focused on their games. They were a bit more passionate. They wanted to do well. They wanted to win. They wanted to prove to the world that we were great athletes. There's a combination of things in terms of the administration of the sport at this point in time. We seem to have a disconnect between the young players today and the players in the past. What we believed in the past is no longer hold true now. You talk about T20 cricket throughout the world, franchise cricket now is taking away some of your best players. Some of the best players will prefer to play in the T20 format, whether it's by choice, whether it's the fact that the administration have not really understood the dynamic, the change in the world order, if you want to call it that. But there are a combination of things, but it boils down to pride on the field of play. Even though we may not have the names, the superstars and the teams, I think players owe it to themselves, once selected to represent their nation. They owe it to themselves to be passionate, they owe it to themselves to be responsible, they owe it to themselves to be committed. And I think you cannot go out there and play half-hearted, even though they may have issues off the field. I think once you cross that line, I think you have to be switched on, you have to be focused, you have to want to do well for your team, regardless of who is selected, regardless of who the presidents are, regardless of who the selectors are. You as a professional, once you have made that commitment to be on a team, you got to do what is best for the team to be successful, and I think that's where we need to be at this stage.
You were the first person to get a man of the match award for fielding. What were the training methods that you practiced then, and what do you see the difference where? I mean, fielding has become very important. Teams like India or some of the South Asian teams which were actually lagging behind in fielding, they've improved. But what were the techniques? What are the differences of techniques then and now?
Well, I don't know if the techniques are there. I think what has happened is that there's no doubt about it that one-day cricket would have helped a lot. It's just like batting, the innovations. Obviously, it meant now that fielding played a much more important part in terms of your team. You say catches win matches, and sometimes a run out will change a game as well. So I think players now put a lot more emphasis on fielding. I mean, they're a lot stronger now. They're throwing the ball a lot further, a lot harder from different positions now. They're sliding, they're diving, they're doing all manner of things. You see some catches being taken on the boundaries where they'll be going over the fence and throwing back. So these are things that you practice. I think anything that can happen in the game, you try to practice it. So it's a matter of the individual coaches, the support staff that teams have now, a lot more support staff, so players can have individual opportunities to work one-on-one with players, with the staff to perfect their art. And I think once a player wants to be out there in the middle, in fact, you spend more time on the field of play more time than batting and bowling. So you need to be good at it. You need to be great at it. And I think what we're seeing now is that it's being highlighted more and more. So I think the opportunity for players to really go out there and be the best they can be in the field, it's certainly improved.
What were the drills that you followed back in your days?
Well, we had some drills where I just say you throw at one stump from different angles. I think in any position on the field you would be at, you would be a point. So you will get to, and those days we didn't have many coaches. Let's put it this way, so player would help player out. So you had a situation whereby the senior players would say, okay, we'll be doing some slip catching today, we'll be doing some outfield work today, or infield work today. So you set up markers around the field, and at different angles you would go around picking the ball up and trying to throw at the stumps from different angles, whether it's side on, whether it's front on, you know, at the end of the day. So these are some of the drills you would have been doing. I mean, we never slide much in our time.
Yeah, exactly.
We always felt that speed across the ground was important, and anticipation. So once you anticipated a shot, your speed across the ground will take you around. So you rounded the ball more than anything else. So you can pick up the ball in good position to be able to throw it. Now you have the slide, the dive, and all different sort of thing, which is nice to see. And when it works, it looks very good. But I think sometimes you see people getting injured, sliding and diving because they hit their knees into the ground and they didn't do it as well. So, but I think it's all well and good to see the modern day young players, you know, taking catches, going over the boundary, throwing it back to each other because you have relays, you know, because you practice all those things. And we did in those days. We practice relays, so two guys will run to a ball, one will be in front, flick it behind, he picks up and throw it. It looks spectacular, and we've seen it work. But I think so many things are coming. Any aspect of the game now has to be worked at. I think there is enough, you know, television coverage now. You see the weaknesses of certain batsmen. Some international batsmen today still see them turning blind, obviously, and that in itself puts pressure on their teammates. They don't call as often. There's uncertainty running between the wickets. They don't trust each other that much, and it gives opportunities for people in the field to effect a run out or to certainly actually save a lot of runs in the field.
I've been looking at the footage of those days, and just as you pointed out, that there weren't too many dive slides. I mean, some like Viv Richards would just pick it up and would gather himself.
Yes, I think balance. We were well balanced. I mean, the guys who, you know, it was something that was a joy. And one of the things, you know, I always look at fielding drills. We used to do a lot of fielding. We used to do a lot of catching. We used to do a lot of running. There were times when we were in Australia and we would be doing fielding drills, and you would see the amount of spectators would be watching, and it gives you a buzz to want to do it well, to want to do it more, to want to do it accurate. So you didn't want to make a mistake because there were so many people looking on at your training sessions. You had adrenaline flow, and you help each other because you wanted to outdo each other in the field. I remember, you know, in those days we had Richards in one side of the ground, you had Roger Harper on another side, you had Clive Lloyd and something else. So you always competed in a way to get better. It was more about trying to show each other, trying to encourage each other to make each other better. That was really good because we know when we get out in the field, it all came together. It was just a joy.
Although the fielding has got very athletic of late, do you think that catching has gone down, the ability to catch?
Well, I must admit that I've seen some spectacular catches being taken with the IPL. We watch that a lot here. We watch the CPL, we watch some test matches, but we've also seen with some really simple ones. So I think again it's a combination of you know, the individuals themselves. And I think you can pinpoint individuals in the game who would have worked really hard at the catching and all cricket and therefore results. But I think generally we would have seen where the fielding side of it has deteriorated a bit. Sometimes maybe the emphasis now is put more on power hitting. Maybe you have a player who feels that his forte, he's being paid to really go out there and hit the ball far and hard over long periods, to just bowl 4 overs in some instances and bowl it well and not really focus too much on the outfield side of it. But I think, you know, the different formats will certainly, you know, need players to really up their game in all areas, all skill areas. So I think test matches, one day international, and more importantly as well the T20s, you certainly have to put a lot of effort in all aspects.
One final question: do you think that other sports, especially athletics, is eating into the popularity of cricket?
Well, I think in terms of success, I think people gravitate to success, and I think the fact that West Indies team is not as successful as it used to be sort of dampened the spirit of a lot of supporters over the years, and the insularity throughout the Caribbean as well. We've seen it rearing its ugly head in many areas, and of course that is not been doing well for cricket. If we continue to win, if we somehow start to win, and of course we're starting from this series, if we get some good results, who knows, people's impression may change. It will take some time to do that, but I think at this point in time, I don't know if it's just the fact that other sports, I think it's just the fact that the West Indies cricket team is not really actually producing the kind of results that people really want to see. A lot of effort being put in. I know the West Indies Cricket Board has a professional league and they're expecting the players to come through that league. But what we do need at the end of the day is coming together of the minds of everybody. We have some very quality players, good quality players who are not involved for one reason or the other. How do we get them involved? That's going to be important because
it's stoking the passion back.
That's right. People still want to see the names. People still want to see, even though the names may not be performing as well. It's a sport that people want to see what they want to call it the stars. People want to see the guys who have established themselves over the years. So there are names that comes to mind, the Bravos. People still want to see those guys on the field of play. They want to see the Pollards and they want to see, players from the different, the Chris Gayles, I think these are some of the names that people still want to see. I know there are issues and that needs to be sorted out because at the end of the day, with those guys playing with some of the young, exciting youngsters that we have, the young hopes, the Lewises and Mohammeds and some of the Chases, and I think playing with some of those guys, I think it will certainly make for better viewing and it will certainly get some of the possibly the support back in the comfort.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you very much.